everyone, and welcome to Bridging the Gap. This is Andrew Nicastro, your chief streamographer, but more importantly, a family member to many of veterans, which if you listen to the last podcast, I gave my testimony as a brother to my two brothers that went overseas and did their thing. So go check out the last podcast.
Your two brothers.
I'm definitely a brother to two brothers.
It's like the definition.
Of a brother.
Of a brother.
My brother from the same mother, right?
Yeah, we know her.
If you want to see her testimony,
met her too.
go 2 podcasts ago. But just to quickly remind ourselves why we are here, from day one, it has been to quiet the stigma of the mental illness, PTS, and suicidal ideologies, and all of the other crap that vets have to deal with.
Saying that, that's exactly what I wrote down, all of the other crap.
Yep.
I'm going to do, Isaac, do you have the slide of resources, the crisis line and everything like that?
Here it
Yeah.
is.
All right. So the most important one up there for veterans or family members, that crisis line. You dial 988, then you press number 1, or you can text 838-255. You can chat online 24/7. Does whatever your crisis is, please use that number. We don't want anyone taking their life. We don't want anyone hurting themselves. Got the Gloucester Veteran Services, our famous V, very famous, 978-281-9740. We love pointing out Tiffany Lever up there in the Lowell Vet Center, 978-453-1151. And our email is bridgingthegapvetspodcast@gmail.com. If you have questions, want to talk, anything at all in your heart, what you're going through, family members, veterans, please email us. It will come right to me, V, and Andrew. We can get you connected. We can talk.
Absolutely.
We will find you to help.
We're here to help.
Yeah. So, V, what's going on today?
So today we have a really dear friend of ours, longtime friend of our office, and very dear friend to a lot of the coffee goers and attendees at the Gloucester CBOC. Jay Harrington is
Hello,
a
Jay.
peer support counselor for Bedford VA. And Jay, so tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. So I currently work as a peer support specialist at the Bedford VA. And so, what that means is all peers are veterans that are in recovery from whether it be mental health or substance use or both. In some
that's
cases,
right. Most of the time,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
In some cases,
Yeah, absolutely. Hi.
So what we do is we share our story. We help veterans to advocate for themselves and sort of navigate the VA as
Yeah.
a system and stuff like that.
It's not easy.
No, not at all.
navigating
So yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
What makes you that word, like peer support, those two words together? What makes a peer and what put you in the position to support?
Well, so and we'll get into it, I think, but
Yeah.
my story is really what got me here,
So-
right? This this wasn't what I thought was going to happen. Everybody has big plans, but it was my life and my life experiences that sort of led me down this path. Yeah.
That's right. You are a Marine. He's a fellow Jarhead, Semper Fi brother.
Back at you.
Your earlier life, there was a time when you decided, I am going to go in the Marines. Can you take us a little before that time, who you were and why you
Before
made that
joining,
decision?
and then why you joined.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I graduated from high school in 2003, which means I was like in a school when 9/11 happened.
Yep.
So it was always sort of on my radar. I had gotten into college when I was in high school, but I probably wasn't quite ready for college.
I hear that.
Yeah,
I
so
did it.
Yeah.
so it was like one semester, and by winter time, that was the end of it, right?
Nothing
and
wrong with that.
And so I was like, all right, like now what, right? And I was roofing for a while, which was worse than college. So I did that for about a year, and some stuff happened. A buddy of mine got in a little bit of trouble. I maybe wasn't making the best decisions.
We're not going to say his name here,
Let
buddy.
me get out of here.
Buddy's fine.
Yeah.
Buddy, you're
Buddy's
good.
good.
So I
Buddy,
said,
you're
you know
safe.
what? I've always kind of thought about this, and so I just did it. I just decided one day. It was probably in summer of 2005. I went down to a recruiter and was like, let's do it. And by November, I was gone to Paris Island.
It sounds like almost like it sounds like you were drawn to it because you needed a change. Was that how you describe it?
Yeah, and I didn't want to roof for the rest of my life, right? Like,
Sure.
there were guys there that were like, dude, you're a young dude, just I don't think
Do
you want to
something
do this
else.
until you're my age. Like my back,
That's
my
awesome they
knees,
did that.
everything's jacked up. So,
Yep.
you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, I did
A
need
career
change,
move. A
right?
career. It was a
Yeah.
career
You
move.
just wanted a big drastic change.
Yeah.
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 Some sort of guidance, some sort of path.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this 9/11 keeps popping up for a lot of
Every
us
Yeah.
on the
time.
podcast. Where were you when it happened, and what were you thinking?
So I was in high school, right? And so, you know, what I remember from that day was busting into my history teacher's room and putting the TV on. And like,
Yeah.
it was just on TV,
Yeah.
you know? And we didn't really know, right? Like the last time something like that had happened was long before our
Yeah.
time,
That's
right.
you know? And so it was a real interesting time.
Did you
know?
understand what was happening?
You know,
you were
not-
what,
Certainly not like I
sophomore?
do now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. You know, I was young. It was early in the school year, too, you
Yeah,
know. So,
yeah.
so it was. But nah, I probably didn't understand like the geopolitical,
Yeah.
you know, ramifications
Right.
of
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, right? You know, I had no idea that we'd have two wars in two different countries for
That
over
you
20
would be
years.
a part
you
of
know?
it.
Yeah.
You had no foresight to say, you were young, you were in high school. You were like, I'm joining the military for that. You weren't there yet.
No, I wasn't there yet because
Okay.
at that time, like, you know, I was playing sports and
Yep.
like, you know, I got pretty good grades, you know, and the thing was go to college.
That's right.
That's what they tell everybody.
Yeah.
Just go to college. Even if college ain't the thing for you, even if you're going to waste some money doing it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I winded up in debt from just that one semester, right? So, yeah.
Yep.
In summer 2005, you see a Marine recruiter.
2005?
Summer 2005.
Yeah.
Why did you choose the Marines?
Yeah, that's gonna be my question too.
Probably the same reason everybody that chooses the Marines chooses the Marines.
Dress
Why'd
blues?
you
You gonna
choose-
look really good in
you know?
uniform?
You know, I mean,
Or did you want to be, as Dave says, a grunt? Right? That's what you say.
Yeah, well,
was because that's what you say a lot.
Your story's like mine. Like
I mean, I went to the recruiter and they tried to talk me out of infantry many times, and I was like, no,
everyone does.
That makes you want it more, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
I want to carry a gun. I want to be a grunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
That's what the Marines. That's what
you're gonna be a
that's what we
Marine.
are.
Yeah, that's
Right,
it's,
right.
you're
it's
gonna be a
go big or
bear,
go home.
be a grizzly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's right, and that's what you did. You went to a Marine recruiter, and which you were in 0311. Were you infantryman? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
same.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's the most basic grunt.
Oh,
0311
boy.
grunts. We literally walk around barking, drooling,
Totally
and grunting.
outnumbered today.
Yeah.
You know, we just bark and
Yeah.
drool.
Yeah.
So you made that decision, Marine recruiter. You were all in at that point. I'm going to the Marines.
Yeah. Yep.
But you knew there were two wars going on.
Yeah. At that time, yeah, it was
That
pretty
is-
clear. You know,
And
It's-
you're an
wow.
infantryman, and you're a grunt, and you know you're going to one of them.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty much.
Did that scare you?
Probably not as much as it should have. You know what
It
I'm
doesn't
saying?
sound like it scared you at all.
Listen, the military only works on young, dumb men.
Guilty.
Right? Like,
Guilty.
you know, you're like, no, it's not a danger. It won't happen to me.
Young dumb women too.
Well,
Guilty.
You know, we pick and choose our MOSs though. We go Army.
But it almost sounds like at least the vibe I'm getting is that you were ready, willing, and able, obviously, to go to war.
Yeah, yeah. And that, you know, like I said, that was, if I was going to go, then I wanted to go and fight, right?
Wow.
That was,
Yep.
So tell us about your military life. Tell us how that went.
yeah. So I went to Paris Island in 2005. And it was pretty basic, got pneumonia, you know, regular old boot camp. So I get to the fleet in sometime in 2006. And so they make me a fire team leader right away. They give me a saw gunner that just came back.
As soon
from
as
a
you got out of
deployment.
SOI,
Yeah.
you get into the fleet and you're a team
They
leader.
give me a team. They,
What is a fire team leader?
you just would be in charge of 3 other Marines.
Okay, 3 other Marines. Okay, you have your little.
Team.
And so
Leader
one of those
team.
guys had just come back from a deployment.
Wow.
And so it was a tough pull there at the beginning.
because you're
interesting.
now outranking him. You're his team leader, and that wasn't.
You know, no,
And he just got
they were
back.
like, "You're going to carry this off for Harrington." So, anyways, so we go to Fallujah in 2007, just as I guess 2-6 we all went.
Yeah.
Right, the whole battalion went, and so I was with Fox Company. We lived in the train station in Fallujah, and we just operated out of there for 7 months. So that was what it was. Once we get into my second deployment, I'll compare it to the first one. but yeah, we just did patrols and we did QRF and we did that kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
In Fallujah, you know.
Yeah.
Just to let the audience know, when the insurgency hit, so we took Iraq really easy, right? That was like a week. I don't even know the exact day, but after the war, after the invasion, it was taken easily. There was an insurgency that happened, the Holy War. Bin Laden and all these clerics and just hierarchy of Al Qaeda was calling it a holy war, and they were calling everyone, those with Islam and the deep roots of the Muslim people, to Iraq to fight a holy war. So the insurgency came full force, and Al Qaeda took a stronghold called Fallujah, and they embedded themselves in Fallujah. So in 2004. The Marines with other organizations, with the Marines were the backbone, that infantry and the Marines were backbone of what they did in Fallujah in 2004 with that invasion. Imagine going house to house. It was the first time since Way City, Vietnam, that they had to go house to house to remove, I don't want to call them terrorists. They were literally in their own homeland, right? Calling from all over the world, and Al-Qaeda took the stronghold, and Marines had to go into Fallujah. And it was a battle from 2004. Just name it.
Yeah.
Fallujah.
So to Dave's point, you were in the heart of it.
Well, yeah, not during that time
After.
in 2004.
This was
It
after.
the cleanup
Okay.
after.
So
Got it.
we more or less occupied the city.
Yeah.
At this point, right? And so they just put us at different points throughout the city.
To maintain control. And
Yep.
And at this time,
Not letting them back in.
Right.
Yeah, what we dealt with was sniper fire, vehicle IDs. The vehicle IDs were so bad that we said you can't drive inside
Yeah.
the city. No vehicle traffic.
Vehicle
None.
IDs.
IEDs.
IEDs.
Yeah.
IEDs.
Improvised
Okay.
explosive devices, and they would pack the cars with the explosives, the bombs, the TNT, whatever they used, because once it went off, it was catastrophe on whoever was around it. And they would just use they were very smart with how they built their bombs. They learned how to start to build, as we would go around with armor and vehicles, they would learn how to shape charge the bomb in the vehicle so as to cause more harm for the men inside the armor. Unbelievable how smart they became.
It
and
was
how
a
they
completely
changed.
different war.
Oh yes,
Completely different from when I was there.
It sounded like Jay was okay with sniper fire and small
I
arms
know.
fire and bullets because the bombs were the ones we were afraid of the most.
You say it so casually. Like, oh, yeah, we dealt with some sniper fire and some IEDs. Like,
Well,
But
I mean,
that's-
we were talking about 2004. I mean, that was a major,
Yeah.
sort of battle.
Major
and,
offensive.
when we were there, it wasn't a daily occurrence, right? But no less scary. That's
Did
that's
happen
not
a
my
lot,
Point,
yeah.
but,
Yeah.
In comparison to the Marines that fought, I got a buddy that fought in
Yeah.
Fallujah earlier than me. He went right out of high school, a year older than me. So
So you do that first deployment.
yeah,
You're with Fox Company. You said was it what did you say? A train station?
yeah, yeah. The north side,
Yeah.
there was a train station.
That was your base. That was
Yeah,
base.
it was
base of
it was
ops.
city to the south of us and desert to the north of us, and so we had these two very different AOs to deal with, and so we had like the Jolan district and some of the more
Yeah.
dangerous areas. So, that's where we stayed in the train station.
You're doing patrolling. The day was like I would leave the base to patrol the area.
Well, and we did a lot of night work because we went from March until October, so only when it was hot.
Yep.
So we did a lot of stuff at night because it was so effing hot. Didn't slip.
It didn't slip. I was looking at it. I was looking
The
at it.
slip is we don't know if we have a sensor machine that goes bleep bleep, and so Andrew's gonna have to.
it would be
figure that
called
one out.
Isaac, and Isaac doesn't have it.
Jay's forewarned us.
We
so.
challenged Jay to because of Marines, and actually V's the
do
worst
it.
one.
I'll do.
So.
I am really bad, but I'll try to do a delayed beep.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
March to October, and then the deployment goes by. There's sniper fire. There's explosions. Obviously, you're flipping the switch, the proverbial switch, to get through life.
Sure.
You transition. Were you out of Lejeune? You transition. You go back to Camp Lejeune.
Yeah, I went back to Camp Lejeune for a pretty brief period of time. After the first deployment, I joined a MIT team, selected for a MIT, whatever you want to call it. That was a military transition team. So now as we're getting further on in time, right now the main effort of the war was to train the Iraqi
right.
soldiers and
Take
the
it
Iraqi
back.
police to deal with them themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So what they did was they would put a team of us together. There was about 22 maybe, about half officers, half enlisted guys. And we attached to an Iraqi army unit and operated with them for 12 months.
how is that? So now compare that deployment to the first one. What would you say about it? How would you compare it?
Well, and a lot of this is with the benefit of hindsight, right? And looking back now. But when we were there the first time, the Iraqi people were bad guys. Everybody was a bad guy.
Yeah,
I mean, we knew that everybody wasn't a bad guy, but for
that's
the
the
most
mentality
part,
that we
that's just
had.
the way
That's how we went in.
That's right.
right? And so we go back and we attach with these guys. And I mean, before long, you're operating with these guys every day. And so you build friendships. And now, I'll give them a pair of boots because we got enough. And, so pretty quickly it became, we had a full bird colonel who was in charge of our team. And he was an advisor to an Iraqi general. And so basically I was in charge of the colonel's personal security detachment, and we just trained up the general's personal security detachment.
That's pretty cool.
So we would build ranges, we would do all kinds of stuff, right? Operate with them, teach them how to operate, so, but it was very interesting because very quickly I was like, well, these guys aren't bad guys.
Yeah.
Just think of that,
You're right.
Andrew. The transition from the first deployment. It's they're in one of the hotbeds of Iraq, which is Fallujah, and everyone's an enemy. Even though you understand, not that child, not that woman over there in the burqa, but still, the people themselves. I'm an American. We isolate. Here's a whole people group, dark skin and everything. They're the enemy. You do a whole deployment like that. Things happen. We talked about snipers, explosions. Go back now. And your mission completely flips and changes, and you need to train them to take back their own country.
Now they're your
and
peers.
secure it. Now they're your peers.
Yeah.
That was Iraq, and you're hearing the two sides of that story.
The first thing that goes through my head was, were there some initial trust issues?
Oh, we never. There was
I can imagine.
Never
perpetual
fully
trust
trust.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dysfunctional relationship? Yeah, I'd say so.
But yeah, it was just very different. Their military culture was different. I was only back in the States for 7 months, and we went through this crash training course of Arabic and Russian weapons and cultural and all this stuff, right? And so it was sort of a whirlwind 27 months or 26 months of, deployment, workup, deployment.
Wow.
And then I'm out.
7 months is not a lot of time to transition from the first one.
No, in fact, I think I remember signing a waiver because at that time they were like, if you deploy for 7 months, you got to be home for twice as much.
Yep.
And so they were like, yeah, but if you just sign this waiver, if you sign a waiver, it
Which
doesn't
was the
matter.
case a lot.
Quite
a bit.
Right. There wasn't
know,
even time for
wow.
any struggles, really. There wasn't time for the mental struggles. I mean, we as Marines, alcohol, there's a type of life and culture that comes with being in the Marines. Did you even have time for that when you got back for the 7 months? Or train, here we go.
So during the first time we drank a lot, and I work with lots of veterans that have substance use disorder, and I like to say that if you were in the military, there's a likely chance that you had a secondary MOS of alcoholic.
Wow, it's true. I never heard it like that.
I mean, you're a Marine. Thursday nights, what do we do? Drink and clean.
I'm telling you.
And
That's
so, you're right though. The second time it was tough, man. We were. I mean, and they did stuff with us that they probably didn't need to. We took Chevy Tahoes out to a tarmac and did evasive driving. I mean, I never drove a Chevy Tahoe in country, but they taught us how to do it.
One of my favorite vehicles in that country was the Suburban and the Tahoe.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, it was interesting. I mean, and the first time we couldn't get shit, we didn't have no gear. The second time we were oversupplied.
Wow.
We had so much stuff. So.
When you look at how tough the first deployment was when it comes to sniper explosions, bad traumas, how does that compare to the second one? Were you more protected because you were with Iraqis, or was it worse?
So, oddly enough, we were pretty safe with the Iraqis. Okay. We did do a lot of stuff on our own, right? But the only thing you were really allowed to do at that time was logistics runs.
Yeah.
And you couldn't operate in country at this time.
The war had changed.
It was outside of the rules of engagement to operate without Iraqi forces with you.
Wow, yeah.
Right. And so one night we were all over. We started in Mosul, and then we were in Ramadi, and then we went to Basra. But while we were in Ramadi, British SAS calls us up one night and is like, let us borrow an Iraqi. And they come land 2 Lynx helicopters, take an Iraqi, put him on the helicopter.
As a linguist? Like what for?
Because they needed an Iraqi, so it was
Just to
legal for
operate.
them to operate.
Just to do the mission.
Because they
They
had
couldn't even
somebody to
operate.
go get.
Yeah.
So they said, let us borrow one of your
Completely
guys.
different one.
Right?
I left in 2007, and so I started transitioning, and I went to Afghanistan because I thought it'd be easier. But wow,
Yeah, so they, that's how strict it was to operate at that time. And so they come, they land
Wow.
him, they take the guy, they leave for an hour or two, they come, drop him back off. I mean, I bet he never got off the airplane or the helicopter.
right? They just needed.
They
one.
probably
just
zip tied
needed
him to the
say that
seat.
they had him.
I
Yeah.
have not heard this.
Me
You
neither.
don't move.
I haven't heard this. I know when Hillary Clinton was changing it, she had said, this is when I knew I had to leave. I was in the green zone, and she said, we're opening up the green zone to Iraqi traffic. And I'm terrified of VBIDs, obviously. And I said, then I'm out. They said, where are you going to go? I go, is there openings in Afghanistan? They go, sure. I'm like, that's where I'm going then. I don't even know what Afghanistan was about. I just knew that I didn't want to deal with traffic all around. Like you said,
The city is a scary place to
yeah,
be.
Baghdad was terrifying.
Yeah.
That's right. And you were like Mosul, Ramadi, and Basra. You were all over, from north to like all over.
So we started in Mosul. We went to Mosul, attached to him. And in Mosul, it was rough. Like, sometimes we weren't in a building. We just put the
Yeah.
cots out. Like, I got pictures of us just like,
Yep.
we'd circle up 3 Humvees and sleep 10 cots in the middle of
That's
them.
right. Mosul ended up becoming the next hotbed after
And
Fallujah
so
that time.
Mosul was rough. I mean, we found like houses wired up to explode, and we were just
Yeah.
like,
Holy moly.
call the Air Force. Don't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
even deal with it. Just call the Air
Yeah,
Force. Let's just get rid of that one.
Yep.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, the Iraqis got tore up a little bit with some IEDs up there, but that was Mosul. We were up there for a while, and eventually we were with the first Iraqi Army Division or whatever it was, and so they went everywhere. So they're like, go to Ramadi. So we go to Ramadi, and they live in a base on one side, and there's a wall to Camp Ramadi, and there's a giant mansion like in the wall.
Yep.
And they're just like, that's your house. And it was sweet. Like,
It's your unit's house?
yeah,
They
there
gave
was
you a mansion.
20 of us. Marble everything, stairs, floors, everything.
Yeah.
But the front door opened to Camp Ramadi and the back door opened to Iraqi Camp Ramadi. And there wasn't enough of us to watch the door, so we would just walk around with the pistols all the time. Like, I'm going to the shower.
With a pistol.
You know?
That's a different way to go take a shower.
And so so we were in Ramadi for a little while, and then when the Brits pulled out, they were like, well, what do we do? So they're like, send MIT 0110 down there and take them over for the Brits.
Oh, that was the Basra trip, right?
Yeah,
Because
so we went
the
to-
Brits had Basra.
Yeah,
That's
the
right.
Brits had Basra.
That's right.
And that's when we experienced some of the weapons like you're talking about.
Yep.
Like when we got close down to Basra, the only port city in Iraq, we're pretty close to Iran. All of a sudden we started seeing,
A lot of the Russian-made
Well, and-
RPKs, PKMs, those
and
things.
like the copper explosive
Yep.
form penetrators
Got
and
it.
stuff like that, like some real gnarly stuff that we were like,
These are the smart
Yeah.
bomb builders that are
we
shaping the
we even said in
Chargers.
07, the dumb ones got killed when they came in 04.
Yeah. And the enemy transitioned how they even made bombs because they knew we were bringing in all this armor, new armored vehicles to combat their stuff, that they started shaping it to beat us.
Yeah. They adapt.
They
They
adapt.
were
We had
adapting
to
over the course
adapt.
of years. And yeah, by the time you were going into that region, these were some heavily trained, experienced war individuals now. You're fighting experienced individuals.
Yeah.
They'd been fighting 3-4 years. The insurgency had been 3 to 4
24/7.
years. And I was leaving because of how difficult I felt it was getting. The rules of engagement, everything. I'm like, I'm out. And we're going.
going,
You're
yeah.
signing a waiver to go.
Well, and part of it was like I knew a lot. My platoon commander from the first deployment went. The colonel was the battalion XO when we went to
Right.
Fallujah. So like I knew a lot of those folks. It's a decent regret that I have though, because all my buddies went on a MEU. They went to the med float.
They went to Europe. They had
Yeah.
the nice stop in
Spain,
Italy and Spain.
Greece.
What'd you
these
say? A
places.
MEU?
Yeah, a Marine Expeditionary Unit, and they go out to Europe. It's the best trip in the Marine Corps. If you want to go on a ship, a deploy, you go on a MEU. You see the best countries in Europe, and you get to port.
And
Or you go
did
back
it.
to Iraq.
And you did
You
it.
didn't know. You never did a MEU.
No. No.
You got Iraq the second time.
Yeah, sure did.
Kind of hear the regret, everybody? Can you hear it a little bit?
It's not regret exactly. It's just
Yeah, I feel like it's never regret, right? Because you make these relationships,
right.
you learn these life lessons that you can never go back on, right? They created who you are now and who
That's
you
right.
became.
And you would not have been a peer support guy had you not gone through what you went through over the both times to this
we didn't even
point.
get to the fun part.
Oh, what's the fun part?
I mean, there's another half to go.
Wait, let's go.
So this is military life. You come back from your second deployment. Is that your end of time in service, or do you continue on with a little more?
No, more or less, right? So I was on this team with a bunch of officers. They're like, dude, you need to go back to college. I don't care if you want to be a Marine. Go back to college and get some shiny stuff on your collar and just make more money doing it, you know? So they helped me get back into school. They were like, you know, they helping me write essays to get me back into school and all this stuff. So I'm like, all right, I'll go back to school, no doubt. And I go home, I go on post-deployment leave, and I wreck a street bike pretty bad. And so this was like 10 days after I got home.
Yep.
You know? And so when I say pretty bad, like needed surgery bad.
Oh,
So this is where I get like my introduction to opiates.
yep. That's right.
You know? Like I was legit banged up. And so
It almost killed you.
Yeah.
It almost killed you.
So so I crashed the bike, I get surgery, and this is in like August. We come back in like the summer. My EAS is November.
August 2009. You got back from the trip.
Yeah, late July.
Late July, and then
Late
you were
July.
end of active duty service. EAS is November 2009, but you got into an accident that almost took your life.
While on leave,
Yeah,
On
yeah.
leave.
or in between, right? You get post deployment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's when they introduced you to the pills to take away the
Yeah.
pain.
Yeah, I mean, so it was 2009,
Yeah.
right? And so everybody's seen or read about the opiate thing, but
Yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I got surgery at home. They were like, just stay home, don't fly, don't drive, just stay home and get surgery at home. That's what the military said.
Yeah.
It's like you were a civilian.
Right.
Go home, be a civilian.
Yeah. And so I do that, and then, you know, I mean, the guy was, I affectionately call him my first drug dealer, because like this dude would do whatever I asked him. I got a prescription on Tuesday, call him again on Thursday. He's like, yeah, no doubt.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, and I was just in a to put it like a fragile state of mind.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
And so yeah, these opiates worked for the pain in my collarbone and the, you know, every place else, but it also, you know, sort of numbed out a lot of the
right.
stuff that.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
that's right. And you weren't processing anything because of the numbing and because of what was going on.
yeah,
Just putting
so,
everything behind the walls.
Yeah. So I'm basically get hooked on them quick.
Yep.
Right. I get hooked on them real quick. But I force my way out of the military basically. They're
Okay.
like, you know, I'm like, listen, I'm going to school. I'm going home. I'm getting out. I got plans. So they were like, all right, go ahead. But I'm like hopelessly addicted to
But
these
honorably
pills.
discharged,
Yeah, yeah.
you're good. But
Yeah, yeah.
you know you're addicted.
Yeah. I mean, I still went to school just like I said I was going to.
Yeah.
But like you said, I was using drugs. I was overusing them, right? Because
But you were
now
functioning?
like, oh yeah,
You were functioning
for the
at-
most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
You
a
know.
functioning addict.
He
That's
was.
a
That's
that's
right.
a thing.
Sure
that
is.
is
Yeah.
a real thing.
Sure is.
And so, you know, this went on for a long time. You know, it was a pretty
How long?
rough
We're in 2009. You become addicted. How long did it go?
till 2013. Another enlistment.
4 years.
What made you re-enlist then?
No, it wasn't. I didn't.
Yeah, the time right.
The
Yeah,
addiction.
yeah.
I don't.
You added that
Wait.
part out? No.
I didn't know that. Wait.
He said another enlistment, so
Oh,
I
another
took that
4
as
years.
I took that as you signed up again.
No, I'm just saying the addiction was 4 more
Just
years.
as
Right.
Just took
long-
4
just
years
as
away
long
from my
as
life.
Yeah.
Which was tougher, the enlistment with 2 trips to Iraq or the enlistment with addiction?
Well, I know you guys talk to families and stuff. If my mother was here, she would probably say the latter.
Okay.
The addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what would
Yeah.
you say?
I don't know. Push, draw. What do you?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
Sure,
of
sure.
course. It's a
Different.
tie.
Yeah,
That's
I
that's
mean-
like comparing apples and oranges.
They were both a war
potentially.
zone.
Okay,
They
no,
were
that's
both
fair.
wars.
It's pretty different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's
One's in
fair.
your head and your body, right? The chemical addiction, which is craziness and numbing, and the other one, You were sober, but having to go through war.
So what changed? What was that rock bottom?
Oh, there was 5 or 6, right? So like my mom brought me to the VA pretty early on. And so I started by going through programs, Boston, Bedford, where else? Brockton.
So all the VAs in this
These
area.
are like different detox
Touring around,
programs.
going to
yeah.
detox, going to programs, SUD programs, dual diagnosis programs. Went to them all, some of them twice, some of them 3 times, right? Like, so, it was a tough go. And, I'm a line stepper. I'm a habitual line stepper, right? Like, so I just kept, so eventually the programs wouldn't take me anymore. So now I'm in homeless shelters, right? And I'm living in shelters, whether it's Veterans Inc. out in Worcester or the New England Center out in Boston, right? So bouncing between those. And so then eventually I start getting in legal trouble, right? Like I'm starting to get picked up for stuff and I'm starting to get in trouble. So, hell, I don't remember exactly, maybe 11. I get arrested. And I wind up getting sent up to the Worcester house on like pretrial. And my mom won't get me. Nobody will get me.
You're stuck.
I got money. Nobody will get me. So I'm like, man, like I'm in the Worcester house for like 8 weeks, and I'm like, phew. So when you ask about a rock bottom,
That was it.
that's
That was one.
flirting with
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
And so, I get out and I don't clean up right
No,
away.
because you have 2 more years to go and your enlistment for drugs.
Right,
In
and so
2011.
And so I get arrested again. This time for possession, and this time I get picked up by like the drug unit in Worcester, the Vice team or whatever they call themselves.
Yep.
And I'm in my mother's car and there's a Marines plate on the front, and one of the detectives pulls me aside and he's like, "What are you doing with these guys? Like, I can see on your ID, like what are you doing with these guys? Get to the VA and get some help." Because I was, again, with like a couple of career criminals. You know what I mean? Just like
And you
doing
were a
what I had to
Marine.
do.
He was calling the Marine and you out.
He's like, bro, what the fuck, right? Whoop, there it was. So, yeah, I mean, that's another one, right? Where a cop's not arrested me and go, yo, I'm going to arrest you. But before I do,
Wow, he decided
I'm
to
gonna
talk
knock
to you.
some sense
He
into
knew he had a
you.
Marine.
and so, eventually it clicks. So I'm living at the New England Center, and it's wintertime, November. And I remember this pretty clearly because at that time they used to throw you out during the day. They thought if you leave, you'll get a job or something.
Well,
They don't do that anymore
Right,
because it was a
right.
bad policy,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Because you throw people out in the streets in November, there's not much
That's right.
options, right? So I can remember calling my mother and being like, I can't do it here. Like, I can't be outside in the cold all day, And so she finally, after like, 3 or 4 years, lets me move back home, right? And so I move home and I'm like, I'm using medication to help, right? Suboxone or what have you.
Okay, yep.
But I wasn't doing it right. And the only time I had ever had any success with sobriety before was with the shot, the Vivitrol shot.
Okay.
Which I'm not going to get into it. I'm not an expert. If you're curious about medications, get the numbers.
That's right.
But I winded up getting some medication to help me, and just getting a little foothold. I was able to kind of start putting my life back together just incrementally, right? So I get clean December 2013, and I start kickboxing and stuff right away. Right, that's like my first
That's good.
outlet.
The
right?
outlet, yeah.
And so that was like my first step back, right? And so I'm doing that pretty regularly. I'm starting to like feel a little better. I'm getting past that fog, right? So eventually, or at this time now, I'm also living in like this home for veterans. So it's the first time I'm really living on my own since I got out, right? Not in a shelter or a program or whatever. So I'm living in this home and I'm paying a little bit for rent, but not that much. And eventually I move into my own apartment, right? Like things are just starting to roll.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I move into my own apartment. Now I got my own spot. And so I'm still kickboxing. I'm still doing my thing. And I'm like, I really kind of squandered that degree that I tried to get when I came home, you know. And at that time, I went for business. You know, I thought I was going to wear a suit, make a lot of money.
I can't see you in a suit.
And so you
good
could
look.
see me in a suit. It's just not for business purposes. And so this time, right, I go back. I decide I'm going to go back to school, but this time I'm going back for psychology, right?
Good for you.
Right, like I'm
The degree we do.
Right,
That's what
so-
we do.
That is what we do.
We want to know why.
Yeah.
We want to know why.
Fascinated by this,
Fascinated.
right?
I
So-
think
Sponges
that's-
we are.
That's it. That's
So
it.
between the ages of 20 and 30, I was 4 people. And so I was fascinated by that. I'm like, how does this happen to somebody?
Wow.
You know? How do I go through these changes where I'm like this kind of dumb kid,
What people?
and then I'm like a really good Marine for 4 years, like really good. I'm really good at it. Probably should have just stayed in, but anyhow. And then I get out and I basically turn into a drug addict criminal with like, and again, with the benefit of hindsight, right? I'm like totally desensitized to fear. I'm totally desensitized to violence. I've been giving me and my buddies IVs every night while we play spades because we're in Iraq. Like, I'm not afraid of needles. I know how all this shit works. And so none of that stuff was a barrier for me. Like walking down into the hood,
Nothing.
No fear. There's no fear.
like
I walk
you
the
know,
streets of Fallujah.
Right,
You
like-
think I'm going to have
Yeah.
fear of that?
Yeah. So it was just this weird, kind of storm.
Perfect storm.
Right. Where I get addicted. I'm not really giving a fuck.
Bleep.
Beep.
Thank you. And so, you guys are making me comfortable. So,
That's what we do here.
so,
Good. We're
We
doing
make
our
people
good-
comfortable to
we're
swear.
Doing our job.
so yeah, I mean, it was a rough, and now whatever this is and whatever it continues to be, is the fourth, right? Like, so I was just fascinated with that, right? I was like, how does this happen? How do you totally flip from one to the other, right? And so go back, get the psychology degree, like a month before I'm about to graduate. I bump into this guy. He's working at Veterans Inc. That's a veterans organization out of Worcester. And it was a shelter that I stayed at when I was struggling. And he's like, you should come get a job. So I apply for a job. They hire me. And I'm like, all right, now I'm helping vets. Like, this is what I
Wow,
wanted.
the purpose part of taking it all upside down and giving back, the service work.
And so, I start working at this homeless shelter. And I'm like, and like some guys, I'd be like, guys, and I'd like pull up my old mug shot from like, 10 years ago and be like, that's me, So yeah, it was a rough ride.
But it's to that point, you were able to speak into their lives because of what you've been through. And you get to this point now where you're completely giving back and serving the veterans and the veteran community.
Yeah,
Right now.
Right. And so now, in my work at the VA, I get to kind of spread that across a lot of different areas, get out here to outreach events and do this kind of stuff. So
That post-traumatic stress, we come home to, and you've said the words, fog, just wasn't feeling good. You were numbing. All the words that we use when we're stuck in the fog, and the fog of war. And because of that, we did certain things and we numbed with certain things so as to take the pain away. And that's part of the problem.
Well, he also didn't transition properly out of the military, so he was kind of just thrown out there to what he knew.
you bring up a really good point because I came back from the MIT team, right? And I show up to Fox Company. All my buddies, they've been fapped out, right? They're working the front gate. They're getting out in a couple months.
Right.
Yeah, so
They're
they
doing
have easier
funerals.
jobs.
They're doing their thing.
Yeah.
I show up. I don't know anybody. I don't know any of the leadership in the company, right? Because it's all changed over by this
right.
time. The Mew's over. They're all gone. There's new people running Fox Company. They got new drops.
They don't know who you are
They have
either.
no idea who
It's
you
So
are.
they
what
look
do
at my
do?
record and they're like, dude, just check out and like go home and like do your thing. Like
Yeah.
turn your gear in,
That.
bro.
2 trips to Iraq, everything he's done. Just go home, man. You're
And
good. Don't worry, you've done your time.
honestly, I don't blame those individual Marines because they probably thought they were doing me a solid. Like
Right.
this dude's been deployed forever.
Yeah,
He probably just
it's-
wants to be
yeah,
home
just
to
go
his
home,
family.
yeah,
Like I'm
yeah.
probably all with good intentions.
Yeah.
Right? But it takes you 3 months to make a Marine and then you just send me home with my wild
You
ass.
ain't unmaking you.
Right?
You're not
Like,
unmaking this
and
guy.
so like yeah, the rules were all different for a long time and
So I guess the civilian in me asks, like, what is a transition supposed to look like? Because I have no idea.
Well, transition should be different for everyone, and I think it should be more catered to each individual and what their experiences are. And a transition for, I feel, combat veterans should be slightly different because you had different types of exposures, different
Right.
levels of combat that you experienced, and then you go home and this happens, and then you try to come back, but you come back to what? To nothing, because they send you back home too.
I always love saying I feel exactly.
I think
agree.
it's different for everyone.
I feel like each Marine has to go see a mental health professional, and we see it as a stigma. We're in the Marines going, dude, I ain't going to medical. You know, all this stigma with a Marine going to medical, a military person, you don't want to be seen as weak. I feel it should be mandatory they see a medical health professional for mental health, and to check in with them, ask the right questions. Look at his. Man, you just came back. Like, what did you do? Get him to say it out loud, like we're confessing now. I feel like that's the right process
right,
to do
break
it.
down that initial barrier. That
Is it a
we
week?
have.
Is it 2 weeks? We don't know. We
Right.
want to allow the person the space to confess what's going on inside there. He was never provided that space. And look at the path. You know, another enlistment.
Another enlistment.
Another enlistment. I've never heard that's great.
It is great.
Well, even in just to piggyback off of that, I mean, and it doesn't have to be you're seeing a doctor per se.
No.
The peer support thing is what we keep
Oh yeah.
hammering
We're all
home
peer
is
support.
the
That's
work
right.
is what works.
That's right.
Talking to another veteran about their experiences, they can open up and share,
That's right.
Right.
which makes it easier for someone else to share.
We're speaking each other's languages when we're sharing our lived-in experiences. So I'm speaking to you on my personal experience that I totally, wholeheartedly understand what you have experienced and are experiencing.
Jay, on a Friday morning, you go into the Veteran Service office and you have the coffee social.
Sure.
You can look at somebody and you know where they're at.
Yeah.
You know what they're doing. You look at them and you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Jay,
I run a lot of groups with Vietnam era veterans, combat vets, and we connect, you know, on like just the combat thing, you know. So it's pretty cool, you know. It's pretty cool to have that connection because I don't know that it happens with, you know, other staff members like it does with peers,
Right.
and stuff like that. So
You bleed green.
Yeah, remember
That's
that?
what- that's what
bleed
they all
green.
say.
Every,
Yeah,
every
the-
one of us bleed green.
Yeah.
And I connect with, again, at the Welcome Home Initiative Veterans of War Retreat Centers. Man, those Vietnam vets, man, they got my heart. You've met Bill.
They get
you've
my
met,
heart. I met them all.
You've met them all.
Yeah.
We love them. And what they had to deal with for 50 years of not saying anything and the addiction and coming home to a country that spit on them, didn't love them, and not everybody, but as a whole, the system, how they were treated, their war. We have so much compassion, grace, and love for our Vietnam vets, all of them. But I'm telling you, that generation sucked up something that men and women are not meant to suck up in the military.
well, and the one before that just sucked it up totally, and I don't know how
telling
that
you.
worked out either.
I know.
You know,
I know.
So if you were to give some like words of advice, or just what would you say to a current veteran that may be struggling?
Where's his camera? Is his here?
His is there.
You can look at veterans and talk to them, or you can look at any of us.
Yeah,
You
you
don't
can
have
look
to
at us
the
too.
camera,
But the question is, what would you say to a veteran that is currently struggling?
you know, I would say get help. Get help. I don't care where. I don't care what you do, because it doesn't necessarily matter. Everybody's recovery looks different. Right? Everybody's recovery is individualized, and so you know, if you're struggling, though, my suggestion is get help and make a change.
Genuinely get help.
Yeah,
But,
I mean-
you and I have had this conversation multiple times that there's some individuals out there who go out and say, yeah, I'm going to get help because they know that's what mom wants. That's what sister wants. That's what dad wants. That's what your family wants. And they get the help and then they come back and then they do it again.
Well, I could tell you that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because that's why I did it for 3.5 years until I was able to realize, like, maybe this isn't my fault, but it's definitely my problem. And the people who are suffering the most are like my mom and my family.
Right.
And like, this isn't a good enough excuse to be an asshole anymore.
Yeah.
Beep.
Well, I wanted to let that
I
one
wanted
out.
that one.
That one
It actually fit way better than the rest of them, too. It actually fit really good. And I think Jay's right. And what does it even mean, veterans, for you to get help? The resources at the beginning of this call that we said, via the Veteran Service Officer, Jay, you can talk to him, too. Peer support.
Yeah.
Like getting help means saying, I need help,
Just
or mom and dad, I need help.
Admitting to someone that you need help and connecting with someone that can connect you with the right resources. Come to our office.
There
I'll
ain't no
connect you
shame.
with Jay. If Jay if Jay can't help you, Jay's going to give me a contact
Yeah.
that can help.
It doesn't matter if it's drugs, suicidal ideology, abuse, whatever it is. You're hurting someone. You're hurting yourself, first of all. You're hurting someone else around you. Say, okay, I need help. And Jay, you gave us little incremental steps you took to how you got clean. Kickboxing was an outlet. You started to physically feel better in some ways, mentally, emotionally. The fog was starting to go away. You started to live on your own, got your own apartment. These little incremental steps put you to the place
They're
where
all
now he went
advances.
to college and got a degree and is helping vets.
Well, yeah, I mean, now I'm happily married, love my wife. You
There
know,
it
we bought a
is.
house.
That's right.
You know, so like my life is now like,
That's right.
You're in a better place.
you know,
Wow, what a journey to this
So,
point. What a journey.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
Thank you for this
you.
journey. This
Yeah,
is awesome.
this is an incredible
Awesome
journey.
podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks,
We got
guys.
really deep. This was amazing. And so we don't know what we're doing next month. We usually have an idea. And you know what? We kind of like to just free flow at this point, and
Roll with it.
we'll see you next month. We love you. Thanks for listening, and connect with us. Please connect with us.
Yep.
And just remember how important your lives are to us. We love you. We don't want anyone taking their life. We want to take that number, whatever that number is. It used to be 22, 17. We want 0. And as you see on the screen, there is the list of resources. Family members, take a picture. Veterans, take a picture. There's a whole list up there that you can get help. Just say, I need help. Take that step, and there are people here who love you, who want to help. See everyone next month.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, guys.